Hello, y'all. Welcome back again. Clipchamp is being an absolute pain to work with, but I have time, so here's another one of my reviews. Today I'll be talking about The Two Princesses of Bamarre by Gail Carson Levine. So without further ado, let's get into it. Why did I pick up this book? This is one of my favorite books growing up, and I reread it more times than I can count. Gail Carson Levine is best known for writing Ella Enchanted, but Two Princesses has always been my favorite. Anyway, I'm in college now and I wanted to revisit this book again since I haven't read it in a while. Here's the synopsis off of Goodreads, and by the way, this is probably the worst synopsis I've ever found for any book so far. 12-year-old Addie. I'm pretty sure she's not 12 in the book because she's at least 16, because her being 12 will make this book make even like zero sense. But anyway, 16-year-old Addie admires her older sister Meryl, who aspires to rid the kingdom of Bamarre from griffins, specters, and ogres. Addie, on the other hand, is full of even spiders and depends on Meryl for courage and protection. Waving her sword Bloodbiter, the older girl declaims in the garden from the heroic epic of Jewel to a thrilled audience of Addie, their governess, and the young sorcerer Reese. I don't know why they included that hyper-specific detail in the synopsis, but again, I said this is a pretty bad synopsis. Anyway, but when Meryl falls ill and with the dreaded Grey Death, Addie must gather her courage and set off alone on a quest to find a cure and save her beloved sister. And the rest of the so-called synopsis spoils the ending, so I'm just not gonna read it. It's bad, I tell you. Okay, holy moly, I still love this book, and I'm not afraid to say it. Maybe the writing isn't the most flowery or sophisticated, but this book is beautiful. Side note, children's novels often have some really fantastic stories, and many of them deserve way more credit and attention than they get. And this is one of those books. I love the world of Bamarre. The legend of Jewel and all the songs about him and such really make the world feel old and lived in. I love the mythical creatures and how Levine adds new elements to make them unique. Valis, the dragon, and her horde, and rules for her captives were super interesting and creative, and the lore about sorcerers and how they're born and function is interesting as well. Addie and Meryl's relationship is beautiful, and I need more stories about sibling bonds like this. The ending still gets me emotional despite the number of times I've reread this, and I was internally cheering victory for Bamarre with the characters as I read. Okay, confession. Reese is probably my first ever fictional crush, or at least one of my first ever fictional crushes. I wanted to name one of the characters in my book after him, but apparently there are already multiple YA romance book name men with the name Reese, RHYS. Sadness. Anywho, on this reread though, I did notice some things about him that I did not remember from before. First off, apparently he's 78 years old. Sorcerers age differently than normal humans in this world, so I guess it's fine. But if you know me, I'm not a fan of fantastical age gaps, so I'm going to pretend I didn't see this, so I can still like him. Also, apparently Reese, like all sorcerers in this universe, have white eyelashes, which looks a little odd when I picture it, but I don't mind, of course. I still like him. 5 stars and a 10 out of 10. I somehow do not own a copy of this book yet, and they didn't have it at Barnes& Noble when I went, sadly. I'm high-key, low-key attached to the library book I keep borrowing, though, and if I get a book, I'd really like it to be this cover of it, because, again, I'm a little attached. Okay, now time for the full summary spoiler review. Princess Meryl and Princess Adelina, or Addie, are the titular two princesses of Mar. Meryl is daring and adventurous, while Addie is fearful and cowardly. Meryl wants to go out and fight the monsters that plague the land, but Addie makes her a promise that she won't leave until Addie has married. Addie thinks this will keep Meryl safe at home for a long time. Their nurse Trina falls ill with the Grey Death. Addie thinks that she can survive if she fights against it and refuses to give in. However, Trina grows worse and goes home to be with her family. They later find out that she has succumbed to the Grey Death. Meanwhile, Addie meets and grows close to Reese, the castle's new apprentice sorcerer. I can't talk. Apprentice sorcerer. A lot of cute moments with them. One day, Meryl and Addie are out, and Addie gets tricked by a specter under the guise of a small child, but Meryl saves her. Reese presents the princesses and their governess Bella with gifts, and they decide to give him something in return. Meryl is in the middle of declaiming for Reese when she suddenly collapses. She is diagnosed with the Grey Death. Addie tells her to fight it like she told Trina to, but the situation seems grim. The Grey Death happens in 3 stages. First, there's weakness, then sleep, and then 3 days, I think, of fever, and then death. No one who has ever contracted it survives. It might be helpful to note that this is a lot more of a curse than an actual disease. I'm not entirely sure why, but there's just something about this. I love hyper-specific time frames like these. I guess it helps the urgency of the story feel more real. Anyway, the princess's father, King Lionel, decides, after wasting a lot of time consulting his Book of Homely Truths, to try to search for a cure. Addie finds hope in this because there's a prophecy that says the cure will be found when cowards find courage and rain falls over all of Bamarre. However, after only a few days with no luck, their father returns home to be with his dying daughter. Frustrated, Addie takes it upon herself to find the cure despite her fear. Before she leaves, she receives a bunch of useful items to aid in her quest. She gets a spyglass and 7 league boots to help her travel fast. She gets these moily herbs that help with injury and pain. She gets a camouflage cloak and a magic tablecloth as a food source from Reese. And she gets Meryl's sword, Bloodbiter, to aid in her quest. Reese wishes to go with her, but he has the summit citadel thing thang for sorcerers, but he promised to come find her when he can. I get that this citadel thing is kind of an excuse not to have Reese on the journey with her, but I also, because one, it would make it too easy, but two, I feel like it would detract from the sister storyline, which is the main focus, while the romance is kind of a subplot. And I think this journey needed Addie to grow on her own, so I don't mind that. Anyway, Addie sets off on her quest, starting with braving her fear of spiders. She gets caught by an ogre, but manages to kill it by taking steps with her 7 league boots and dragging it behind her. She gets tricked by a specter again, disguised as Reese, but the real Reese comes and she realizes her mistake. The specter tells her her best chance at finding a cure is with a dragon. Addie accidentally kills a pack of griffins by letting them gorge themselves on an endless supply of food from the magic tablecloth. The array of carcasses attracts the dragon Wallace, who picks up Addie. I love that Addie isn't instantly a badass, and her victories are a combination of luck and outside help. While Addie journeys along, there seems to be some invisible outside force that seems to be helping push her along. And I didn't notice that on my first few reads, but when I read it back, with knowing the ending, it makes more sense. So hang on to that. Now we have a fun, creative section where Addie must survive Wallace by entertaining her. You see, dragons get lonely, so sometimes they kidnap humans to keep them company. With Wallace in particular, she kills her prisoners when they grow boring or when they displease her. But she tells Addie that she still misses those she has killed. There's an interesting system Wallace uses to track her approval. If Addie does something that pleases her, she gets to pick an item from Wallace's hoard to add to her personal wardrobe or storage. If she displeases Wallace, Dragon will take the item away. When there are none left, that's when she knows she's going to die. Addie entertains Wallace with her embroidery skills, and eventually Wallace shares the details about the Grey Death. She says that the Grey Death emerged from her mother's corpse after she was slain by Jewald, a Bamarrian hero of old. Wallace reveals that the cure can be found at the waterfall of Mount Ziriat, the fairy's invisible mountain, and even tells Addie where to find it. Slowly, though, Wallace grows bored of Addie and starts taking items from her. She seals Addie in her cave for days while she goes out to hunt. Addie uses her spyglass to monitor Meryl's condition and sees her move from the sleep stage to the fever stage, which is, as I mentioned, the final stage. When Wallace comes back, Addie takes a step with her boots and rams into Wallace, driving her sword into her belly. Addie successfully escapes and returns to the castle bearing the good news. She, Meryl, and Reese travel towards Mount Ziriat using the 7 league boots again. Near Ziriat is a town whose name escapes me, dang it. The people in this town or village have never contracted the Grey Death because they always drink the water of the falls, and this proves that Wallace was telling the truth. According to the legend, it is full of cowards who refuse to help Jewald in his time of need, resulting in his sweetheart Freya's death. Now, however, they find a few brave souls willing to join them on their quest. Monsters stand in the way before the waterfall, but they're willing to fight. This whole section is epic and a total rush of emotions. Addie and Reese confess their love for each other right before the battle, classic, but also oh my gosh. Then they're all fighting, protecting Meryl as she runs through the walls. Despite her weakness, Meryl, smiling and laughing, finally able to fight monsters like she's always dreamed. Follies comes back, but Addie successfully slays her. Meryl's almost there when an ogre grabs Addie and she screams in pain. Meryl pauses to help her and in doing so does not make it to the falls in time before the first rays of light comes. Meryl collapses and Addie feels rain on her face and then it cuts to black. Oh my goodness, I love this part but it also makes me so freaking sad. And I'm about to get more sad. When Addie finally wakes up, she sees Meryl alive and well, but different in some way. Meryl reveals that they were taken by fairies to the top of Mount Ziriat. The rain that fell cured everyone currently affected by the Grey Death, except those too close to the point of death, like Meryl. To save her life, the fairies offered to turn Meryl into a fairy, and she agreed. Addie is distraught because that meant she didn't actually save her sister, but still, it was because of her courage that the kingdom was saved. Unfortunately, since Meryl is a fairy and now has fairy duties and loyalty, she can no longer return home with Addie. It is also revealed that the guiding force helping Addie through her quest was none other than Druald, turned into a fairy himself years ago. It's implied that he and Meryl have a thing going on, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. Anyway, Addie gets married to Reese, which also essentially ends her and Meryl's deal that Meryl would not venture till Addie was wed. And yeah, that's basically how it ends. They part ways in the end, but they are happy where they are. Oh, this ending never fails to destroy me, and I totally feel Addie's pain. She was the one who didn't want Meryl to leave home and adventure because of her own fear, and because of that, Meryl never got the chance to do all that while she lived. Now she gets to being a fairy and all, but the loss is still there. Also, I mentioned this in my last video, my Peter and the Starcatchers review. Oh, last video, I guess. But I don't like the thought of living forever. As a fairy, Meryl gets to live forever while Addie does not. Meryl says she'll be watching over Addie's descendants for generations, but all I can think of is the unsurmountable divide that now exists between the two sisters that makes this ending all the more tragic to me. So yeah, there's the book. I love it dearly, and it's one of those stories that I can't reread too often because it just makes me so sad, especially that ending. But it definitely deserves way more hype, and I would highly, highly recommend it to anyone. Well, anyway, that's it for now again. If you enjoyed this video, I hate saying this, please like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!